Hello, students. Welcome back. Hey, guess what? We're in a new chapter. In fact, it is the last chapter. We are now starting chapter 9. Chapter 9 is about learning to solve a quadratic equation. A quadratic equation is basically one of these guys. It's an equation where there's an x squared. That's all it is. In this chapter, we're going to learn 4 different ways to solve this kind of an equation. We're going to learn in this chapter to solve it by graphing. Next, we're going to solve it by factoring. That's next week. The following week by using square roots. And the week after that by using a quadratic formula. And then we are done. And then you guys can go on summer break. All right. So basically, it is it is solving equations, just like we did at the very beginning of the year, except that this time they're quadratic. So let me remind you of what you already know. This over here is a linear equation. You know how to solve this. And the strategies we used was to do something to both sides. For example, for this one, we could add 3 to both sides and cross those out, and you get 5x equals negative 5. And then we would divide both sides by 5, and we would get x equals. I vanquished! All right. Sorry about that again. Where was I? Oh, yes. We divide by negative 5, and we get x equals negative 1. So that was using the properties of equality. What we did to the left, we did to the right. When you have a quadratic equation, that usually does not work. Check it out. I could, for example, add 4 to both sides and get x squared plus 3x equals 4. But then what would you do to this side? How would you get the x by itself? You're stuck. And that is why I'm going to teach you these 4 different methods for solving a quadratic equation. And the 4 methods that we're going to learn are graphing, and that is chapter 9.2. Actually, let me be precise with you guys. I'll show you exactly what sections we're still doing. Then we are going to learn to solve quadratic equations by using square roots, and that will be section 9.3. We will then learn to solve quadratic equations by factoring, and that actually is going to be section 7.4, believe it or not. And lastly, we're going to end this whole year with learning to solve quadratic equations by something called the quadratic formula, and that'll be section 9.5. So that is what we have left, and once we're done with that, we are done. Okay, so let's learn to solve this by graphing. The technique is actually pretty cool, and it works with quadratic equations and with any kind of equation, actually. And down here, I have the 3 steps on how to solve a quadratic equation by graphing. So let's do this one, and I'll show you in Desmos how it works. So first of all, we're going to write it in standard form, and it just so happens that this equation is already in standard form. Now, if you guys don't remember what standard form was simply this: ax squared plus bx plus c. So we need to make sure that the a, the b, and the c are all together on the left. Then what we're going to do is we're going to graph its related function. In other words, we are going to replace the 0 with a y. And we're going to graph y equals x squared plus 3x minus 4. All we're doing is replacing the 0 with a y. In other words, we're graphing y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Now here is the cool thing. If we replace the y with a 0 or the 0 with a y and we graph it, then all we need to do is find out what is the value of x when y equals 0. So let's go ahead and graph that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right, Desmos, where are you? Here you are. So let's graph y equals x squared plus 3x minus 4. All right, let's see where the value of y is 0. Because I want to know what x is when y is 0. Because remember, I had it 0 first, and I put a y in for it. So when y is 0, x is -4 and +1. That means that the answer to the solutions, there are two of them, to my equations must be x equals -4 and x equals 1. Let's take a look at it and make sure that it actually works. So I think, and let me just erase this a little bit. I think that by graphing, I have determined that x equals, what is happening here? What do I do? Oh no. I apologize for my humanity. X equals -4 and x equals +1, because those are the x-intercepts, which, by the way, is what it says here. After we graph it, find the x-intercepts if there are any. So in this particular case, my solutions are going to be x equals -4 and x equals 1. Let's go ahead and check that to make sure we did it right. Let's plug it in. It should work. So plugging in -4, I'm going to get -4 squared plus 3 times -4 minus 4. And that should equal 0 in theory. So let's see. This is 16 minus 12 minus 4 equals 0. Check. Let's check the other one to make sure that one also works. Also, x equals 1 should work. So let's try to find out. So let's plug in 1 for x. And this one's quite easy. I'm just getting 1 plus 3 minus 4. And in fact, that does equal 0. So one thing you should know about quadratic equations is that they can have two solutions. In fact, very often they will have two solutions. I'll give you a hint. Do you see the highest exponent? That's the number of solutions an equation can have. Now, this technique would have worked all along. It works with linear ones too. So for example, with this linear equation, this 5x minus 3 equals a -8, if I had to just put this in standard form, so add 8 to both sides and get a 0 on the other side, 5x plus 5 equals 0, and then simply replace the 0 with a y and graphed it, you'll see that it crosses at x equals -1. I'll show you. So let's go back to Desmos. And I'm going to graph y equals 5x minus 5. Or was it plus 5? No, it's plus 5. 5x plus 5. And you will notice that it crosses when x is -1. So when y is 0, x is -1. And that's what we had in our equation. We didn't actually have a y. We had a 0 there. So when this is 0, this needs to be -1. Now, this technique works with every single equation that you'll ever have to do in your entire high school career. If you can't solve an equation, what you can do is you can graph it. And the x-intercept is going to be the answer to that equation as long as you have a 0 on one side and replace the 0 with a y. So let's do two examples, and let's try this out. You're welcome to use Desmos for this if you'd like. I know that you can graph them by hand, but to save time, if you'd like to use Desmos, go ahead. It's 2020. We have Desmos. Let's use it. So let's do a few more examples, and let's follow those 3 steps that we just wrote down. Step 1, write in standard form. Now, is this in standard form? No. So let's add a 16 to both sides to get it in standard form. So x squared minus 8x plus 16 equals 0. All right, that is step 1. Now, step 2, we're going to write the related function. So we're going to replace the 0 with a y. Step 3, we are going to graph it, and we're going to look for the x-intercepts, and those will be the answers. And I'm going to guess I'm probably going to get 2 answers. That's what I got last time. So let's go back to Desmos once again and graph that guy. So that was x squared minus 8x plus 16. Let's see. Oh, well, look at that. I'm not getting 2 answers. Because remember, the number of answers you get depends on how many x-intercepts you have. So a parabola can have only 1 x-intercept sometime, such as this parabola. He only has 1 x-intercept. If I were to lower him a bit, now he would have 2 x-intercepts. But as it is, It only has one x-intercept, therefore that equation has only one solution, x equals 4. So let's go ahead and take a look at that and check to make sure it's right. So I'm getting x equals 4, and that is the only solution I'm getting. I'm now going to test it to make sure it's right. I'm going to plug it in. So let's see. Is it true that 4 squared minus 8 times 4 equals negative 16? That gives you 16. That's negative 32. Yep, it's true. So x equals 4 is the solution. There is one more thing that could possibly happen. Now, if you think about it, a parabola can have 2 intercepts. It could have 1 intercept, but there's also another possibility, isn't there? So let's take a look at that one. So let's go ahead and write this in standard form first. So I'm going to have to add 2x and add a 4 to both sides. I need to get the b and the c over there. These are gone. So in standard form, it's x squared plus 2x plus 4. That is step 1. Step 2, I'm going to write the related function. So I'm going to replace the 0 with a y. And step 3, I'm going to graph it and look for the x-intercepts. I can get up to 2 of them, but let's go ahead and take a look. Going back to Desmos, plus 2x plus 4. Okay, where is the x-intercept? Where does it cross the x-axis? Nowhere. And you probably know what that means. So what's the solution going to be? Right, there is no solution to this. So this is a no solution equation. So you can just go ahead and say that there is no solution. So you can have no solution, you could have one solution, or you could have 2 solutions. Remember, with no solution, your parabola will look like this. Never crosses. With one solution, it's going to touch the x-axis and go back up. And for 2 solutions, it's going to go through in 2 different spots. And those will be the solutions to your equation. So that is how you can solve a quadratic equation, or really any equation, by simply using the graphing method. So have fun with that. That's going to be an easy one for you guys. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.